Today's class, we are going to discuss about climate change and whether climate change is happening or not, and we are going to see some of the proof of like what will happen if there is a climate change and like how this climate change is getting triggered. So the first question that we will be like answering in this particular lecture is like what is the difference between greenhouse effect, climate change and global warming? All these three are actually like interrelated with each other, and I'm going to give you a short note on like what are all these things, like that is greenhouse effect, climate change and global warming and the relation between these three. And the second thing is like we'll see like whether what proof do we have, for example, like if there is any proof for whether the climate change is really happening or not. So we'll discuss that. And the third thing we'll be like seeing is why is this actually happening. So we'll discuss about these three questions in this particular session. So let us come to the first part. So what do you mean by this greenhouse effect? So basically, like this is a common procedure that has been followed in most of the hill stations or very colder locations to maintain this warmer atmosphere. So basically, in locations such as Ooty, like Arctic locations, like basically, like they used to adopt this particular uh, methodology to grow some sort of vegetables. Basically, like we can see some sort of an glass type of houses or hut kind of a thing which will be constructed on top of this hills. Basically, like in most of the movies, they used to actually show it. So those sort of structures, why is it actually used? The main reason why this is used is because like the radiation, that is the sun's radiation will be actually like allowed to enter inside, whereas like once it hits the once it enters into the greenhouse, it won't actually like penetrate out of this greenhouse layer. So what will happen is like automatically the room will get warmer, which will be like suitable for cultivation, and also it kind of makes it as a favorable situation for us, bit warmer. So that is the greenhouse effect. And similarly, like, why do we have to learn about this greenhouse effect and this climate change? There is one major reason. The reason is because we know about this ozone layer that is present in our atmosphere, which protects this harmful radiation such as UV rays and others from entering into the atmosphere. So basically, what this ozone layer does is it protects the Earth's heat, like from escaping out of this atmosphere. So that will act as a layer, and once the solar radiations enter inside the atmosphere, it will hit and it will like kind of like bounce back within the atmosphere. So this is like how it actually happens. So this helps in maintaining the Earth warmer. So this is why our Earth is actually like bit warm. So this is the main reason why we are actually like having our Earth in a particular warmer temperature, and like which makes the Earth suitable for us. So what should we actually like? What does this effect actually has on our daily life? What does this particular thing has in our climate change? We'll discuss slowly. So basically, like I hope most of you know that the Earth is actually having there are like there is a troposphere, mesosphere, exosphere. There are like different layers of atmosphere, and we have all these layers. Which there are like in each layer, it is actually like used for different purposes. And let us take our Earth. Basically, like in our Earth's atmosphere, I hope most of you know that 78 percentage of Earth is covered with nitrogen, and 21 percentage is filled with oxygen, and other left out is actually like occupied by other gases, including CO2 and other stuffs. So basically, the atmosphere of this particular Earth makes it suitable for human beings to live. So the concept of this global warming and this ozone layer makes it suitable. So there are like research going on like how we can actually make people live on Mars, but still there is only like research which is going on. So as I said, what is the difference between global warming and climate change? So basically, um, global warming. So we know what is our greenhouse effect. So basically, like in greenhouse, the temperature will be maintained at a constant level. But whereas if you go with your global warming, the same thing, the same situation of our greenhouse gas happens to the entire Earth's atmosphere. And in here, the surface temperature. Inside a greenhouse, there will be like only the normal room temperature. But if you come to this global warming, the surface temperature comes into picture, and this temperature keeps on increasing. Once you experience a like increase in the temperature, because nowadays you can actually like feel the heat during the summer season and other times. Like during winter, it is even much cooler. So this is an impact of this climate change. So basically, like global warming, it creates like basically like during winter it gets cooler and during summer it gets warmer. So this happens. So what do you mean by this climate change? What is global warming? How is global warming related to this climate change? So in case if this global warming scenario is actually being experienced for a longer duration, not only with respect to temperature, but considering all the other factors. That is like all the climatic parameters. You can say temperature, precipitation. It not only creates affects temperature and precipitation. There are like so many other parameters that has to be considered. Like sea surface temperature, you can take it into picture. Like the formation of all these fogs, mist, cyclones. All these comes into picture. So all these are like basically like interrelated. So once due the greenhouse is actually happening at your room level, global warming is happening at a world level, that is on the earth for a particular duration, and whereas like climate change is happening for a continuous duration. So in that case, if the temperature is increasing, decreasing, or remains constant, whatever the variation it is happening means when it is like getting abnormal when considered to your normal atmosphere, it is actually the called as climate change. So basically, like what do you mean by this word called average in our climate change? So basically, I hope most of you know what is average, or you can say mean. Basically, like if you have 10 values, you'll like find the like you'll add it and divide it by the whole divide it by the total number of count to get your average. So similarly, your weather or your climate is actually like calculated. The variation in this climate is calculated based on the average only. They don't consider your daily stuff and say like today it is increasing, today it is decreasing. They will consider an average. So, for example, one better example is like daily average. So, daily data means like you can't say like I'm working over every 1 minute or every 1 second. They'll consider the whole day, and for that they will find the average. They'll take the maximum, they'll take the minimum. Based on that, like they will do some sort of an analysis. So, in case if the global warming is actually happening, then the Earth's average temperature or the other stuff will vary. So this is one better example. So this is an image which is created by showing the global surface temperature variation from 1884 to 2012. So this is how it varies. So in here they have actually like mentioned a 5-year average variation. So you can clearly see. So there is a temperature variation of -2, which is represented in blue color, and the variation of +2, which is represented in green color. So that means nowadays, most of the parts of this world, till 2012, the temperature has actually increased. You can see in Canada, US, India, all the European and Arab countries, Africa, even in Arctic and Antarctic also, the temperature has actually increased. Whereas in Antarctica, in some portion, the temperature decreased, and in Pacific also, like in certain portions, it actually got decreased. So this is just a pictorial representation. How what is the changes that is actually happening all over the earth. So we all might think, how does this actually work? So basically, like as I said, you know how this global warming works. Sun is the main source of our energy, or the main source of heat for us to live, for us to keep warm. We can't like actually survive without sun. We need certain amount of heat also to survive. So that is actually provided by the sun. So basically what happens is the heat enters inside and some portion of the heat is also left out through this ozone layer. So that also will happen. But what happens when this global warming comes into picture? Not only CO2. Like for an example, it is given as CO2. Basically, like it is not only CO2. There will be like other gases also. So what happens? These pollutants comes into picture. Once these pollutants are being filled in this atmosphere, what happens is how these pollutants are released into this atmosphere by factories, by most moving vehicles, and there are like so many other contributing factors to this particular atmosphere. And hope you might have actually studied that particular concept in air pollution. So the CO2, NO2, SO2, all these pollutants are released into this atmosphere, which creates a layer above our atmosphere. So what happens is like the heat that are actually like entering into the atmosphere ends up getting reflected within the surface. So that itself it creates some sort of an heat, which makes the atmosphere even more warmer. Once the surface actually gets warmer, it kind of like leads to so many issues. What are the issues? The first thing is like evaporation will increase. So once evaporation increases, water will actually like go and start accumulating as clouds. So that kind of hydrological cycle will be like getting affected. So you'll get abnormal rain, and there are like other factors. Once the temperature increases, it ultimately ends up in melting all those glaciers, which ends up in increasing the sea surface level. So nowadays, like there is a huge news that is going on saying that Chennai will actually like most of the parts of Chennai will actually like get inside water. See, that will happen if we don't take necessary steps. So what do we have as a proof? So the first thing is like there is a small comparison of this temperature between 1880 and 2000. That is the present scenario. So this is just one reference, that is like the global temperature. So basically like in 1880 you can see the temperature is somewhere around -2, -4. The variation is that is the global temperature based on this meteorological stations. It is very less. But now if you check it out, it is like around zero point 0.8. So this is an anomaly. Okay, this is minus 0.4. Basically your anomaly means which varies from kind of like an index. So initially it is minus zero point 0.4, and now it has gone up to zero point 0.8. You can see how it actually increases. And just have a comparison of your CO2 level. So this is the highest historical CO2 level which is recorded, maybe like thousands of years ago. But see, after 1950, the way how we have actually utilized this CO, the like other factories and development, you can see how much volume of CO2 increase is being recorded. So once these changes are reflected, what will happen? This is the change that will be recorded. You can see in the image left hand side, this is the image which is taken in Alaska. You can see that in your left hand side, these are all glaciers. Since it is a black and white image, even water will be appearing like that. Don't think like that, but these are all glaciers, actual glaciers. But just have a comparison of that particular image in the year 2004, after around 80 years. Just have a small comparison. You can see around 90 years, sorry. You can see a huge variation. All these things are being recorded only due to climate change. Not only this, why we are actually like having examples with respect to US is because most of the climatic related studies are being carried out in US, Canada, Britain, European countries are working hard on it. Norway and Sweden are working more on this Arctic research. India is also like having its own stage, Arctic Research Center, like NCPOR, who are working on this glaciers modeling and monitoring this global climate change. They have our Antarctic, even in Antarctic also we have our own research center. So many researches are being carried out, but still the solution is yet to be like found because people, due to the growth in population and also the total volume of pollutants that are being emitted into the atmosphere by both industries and also like human movements with both vehicles and other stuffs. So this is what which will happen, which ultimately ends up in increasing sea surface level and other natural calamities. So this is a best example for this sea level rise. So basically, like at present, based on the satellite observations, so we have our satellite data. SCATSAT is there. There are like IMD data sets which are actually like provided all over the world. So based on the satellite data, it is recorded that the sea level rise of around 3.16 per year is recorded. Whereas like based on the ground data means basically like these data are actually based on the uh, instruments that will be like present in the sea, that will be like installed in the sea at a particular site. So they will actually like take a mean of it and they will find the variation. So you can see at least like there is some variation or there is an increase which has been recorded in the sea level. So basically like most of these climate change studies are actually like being carried out in USA and other stuff as I discussed. And um, basically like in US, if you are like looking for your higher studies or something, please focus on this climate change part because climate change is one of the most hot topic, not only now but also in the future it will be a hot topic because we are trying to model our environment, we are trying to model nature. So modeling plays a major role because we have to create some so many mathematical, we have to like do so many statistical analysis to model how our world will actually be. Windy is one better example of how modeling is being done. Okay, let us get back. So temperatures are rising in US and there is like so many extreme rainfall and also like flood events which is recorded. And drought is also like nowadays increasing not only in US. All these are being experienced in India and people from Assam, they will know like what is the actual issue of this flood. And like recently Godavari also like I guess it experienced some floods. There are like so many impacts and the cultivation is actually getting reduced and there is like food which is actually like becoming a huge issue that is called as your drought. And it does these changes, climate changes has a direct impact not only on human beings, but it has a direct impact on animals also. So basically, like in this particular image, the black color ones are the animals that has already had some responses. Responses means either they were dying or like there has been some changes. They were moving in search of some other stuffs. So this is for use. So basically, These changes that are being recorded has a direct impact on all the animals and plants that are present. And in future, they are expecting like all the white animals, like for example, frogs, snakes, those also will have an impact. That is what they are actually expecting. So climate change, it doesn't only damages, or it doesn't only not only like creates has an impact on human beings, it also has an impact on animals and plants also. So why is this climate change happening? So we'll have this particular question. So why is this climate change happening? The main reason is because of human activities. Because after our world war, only like after world war II, like the nation started developing. Industrialization happened only after this world wars. So nowadays, like like just imagine 1950 or 1960. What was the total volume of vehicles that are moving in the roads? Just go before 10 years and just have a look. Consider the traffic which is present right now in Chennai. It's so congested. Just look at the population of, or like the how the development has happened. Look at the development of new industries and other stuff. So all these things are the major contributors for the pollution. These pollutants has a direct impact on the climate, which results in this particular climate. So make sure you like to reduce the usage of your pollutant like bikes and cars, so that like you can save nature. So yeah, as we see, um, global warming, climate change, and greenhouse. So greenhouse is what which is happen. Greenhouse effect is the main base for all these things, and due to all our human movements and human contributions to this atmosphere, we are like digging well, and we are like creating an environment which is going to be not suitable for us to live. So act now. Make sure like you are not using your vehicles when you are going to the next street. Try to like use public transport. Try to avoid usage of all the burning of fossil fuels, or like don't burn anything. Dispose your waste properly. All these things will actually like have a direct impact, and we can actually like save our atmosphere, like climate, or we can say our health. So thank you, and that is for today's class. And if you have any queries, you can ping me in the WhatsApp group. Thank you.